We are back with another reflection on the Daily Vedantic. Today's reflection comes from a recent Venice Vedanta club hang that we have. We've got a philosophy club here in Venice and hosted in our backyard or hosted at the Magic Mind office here in Venice. And one of the topics that has come up a few times, I think I did an episode on this a while back, on what is called in shorthand, the greater darkness. Vedanta is the philosophy at the end of the Vedas, and at the end of the Vedas, these four philosophical textbooks. At the end of these Vedas, the oldest philosophical texts we know of in humanity are the Upanishads, the concise, oftentimes cryptic, philosophical, crystallized philosophical portions of the Vedic scriptures. So in the Upanishads, which sit at the end of the Vedas, and Vedanta means end of the Vedas, so it points to the Upanishads. It is the philosophy of the Upanishads. In one of the Upanishads, you have the Ishavasi Upanishad. It says that attachment to ignorance, or some translations, attachment to the material world, is great darkness, but attachment to the spiritual realm, to the spiritual world, is greater darkness. Some translations have it as attachment to knowledge. It's greater darkness. How could this be? What does this mean? Attachment to the material world is great darkness. That, anybody a few episodes into this podcast, that would not surprise anybody. Attachment to name, fame, career, status, finances. Attachment to those, great darkness, it's blinding. Attachment to, I've just got to get rich, causes heaps of mistakes along the way in our lives. If that is the attachment to getting rich, some people might do it the right way. Some people might do it the squeaky clean way. But oftentimes when we have an attachment to some outcome like that, attachment to name and fame, someone that starts cheating in a sport, there's countless examples. People so attached to a name and fame that they end up destroying their name and become infamous instead of famous. There's so many examples. People that, in the pursuit of wealth, destroy themselves, go into seemingly insurmountable debt. That is pretty straightforward. It's great darkness to be attached to material goals like that. But this philosophy, I think I did an episode about a week or two ago on how this philosophy disavows itself. It says that this is not the truth. The only philosophy I've ever heard of that says, by the way, this is not the truth. This is just the pointer to the truth. This philosophy also says, watch out for the attachment to these concepts, because it's even greater darkness than the attachment to the material world. Like, what? How can a philosophy that is amplifying the importance of principles, another word for Vedanta is Sanatana Dharma, which means eternal principles, it's elevating these timeless principles. How can these timeless principles lead us to a greater darkness than attachment to the material world, attachment to selfish, egoistic results? How can attachment to these timeless concepts be worse, be more blinding than the attachment to material goals? Well, both can be incredibly selfish. The conventional thoughts around religion of do this, these 10 things, don't do these 10 things, do these, in the Old Testament, over 640 things, don't do these 640 things, follow these laws, and you get perhaps heaven on the other side, eternal bliss. Do these things for yourself to get eternal bliss. And Eastern pursuit, for the first few years of this philosophy, it was basically me just diving into what was essentially just a spiritual escape pod. How do I get out of suffering? How do I get myself into peace, prosperity, bliss, away from suffering, agitation. It's just me trying to remove myself in this spiritual escape pod from agitation and pain, suffering. Either of these, any of these, and anything in between is as hedonistic as any other worldly pursuit. It's not what philosophy is for. It's not what religion is for. It's certainly not what this philosophy is for. It's not to take you to peace and prosperity in some egoistic fashion that's just an elevated version of, man, I don't want 10 million bucks. I want enlightenment, realization. I want to end all suffering. I want to be above it all. I want to be a lighthouse for my community that everybody reveres. That is not just as dangerous as any worldly pursuit. It's even more dangerous. Spiritual ego is worse than worldly ego because it wears the mask of truth. It deludes us further into a never-ending pit of egoism, of being holier than thou. And it's masked. The very thing that should be liberating us. And it becomes this never-ending, as I said, a never-ending loop because, well, you need to find even more holier than thou recognition from bigger and bigger communities, from everybody around you. That egoism becomes so sensitive that you study even more concepts, trying to cram even more into your head. You debate with people more and more. You find even more egoistic separation, judgment of those around you, and egoistic inflation of you on your path. It is worse than worldly ego because it is masked in truth. At least worldly ego is not masked in truth. There are people all around us that will remind us that what we're searching for is not in wealth or name. Any pop star that's been a pop star for more than 10 minutes tells you it's not in name and fame. But very few will tell you that it's not in creating a holy name, creating holy fame, even within your family or community. We get told that that's a high. No. We get told that that's a pursuit worth. We get told that that's a pursuit worth taking. It gets encouraged. Anybody that sets out, I grew up Roman Catholic, to become a priest is going to get a lot of pats on the back from their family. Maybe not from everybody, but certainly from extended family, patting them on the back for taking these vows, taking up a life towards the higher. And they might be, they might not be. But we wouldn't know because it's wearing the mask of truth. And we're not meant to be attached to these timeless concepts. We are meant to use them, to transcend them. Swami's example oftentimes is the pole vaulter. Use the pole to get above the bar, then let go of the pole. You can't get above the bar without the pole, but you can't cross the bar with the pole. We're meant to use these concepts, not get attached to them. Use them, just like you would use a car, vehicle. To get from A to B, not to get attached to it, because then you never get out of the car. You never get to B. You're just stuck in this go-between, in this medium. And when we get stuck to these concepts, get stuck to, wow, this egoistic inflation that happens. People see any holy deeds, or even worse, if we see, wow, this is working for me, and now I can use this to get these worldly goals. Because this philosophy works. It works for the transcendental, and it works for the immediate, the mundane goals too. My God, does it work for whatever financial goal or name or fame that you might be seeking, status that you might be seeking, and no one's there to call your bluff because you are parading around in that mask of truth. It's something that this philosophy itself calls out. Do not get attached to these concepts. to these principles. Use them to transcend them. True spirituality, true philosophy is not about merit. It is about transcendence. And that is today's reflection on the Daily Vedantic. We'll see you next time.